Yo, it's good, YouTube. I mean, I know it took me a while. I was been supposed to make this video, but I waited for two things. I waited for the right feature in boxing to help make my point, and I waited for me to have the time. So now that both has happened, I'm making this video. This video is dedicated to bloodboxing. I mean, it's pertaining to bloodboxing's idea of what Hall of Fame is. And I dispute with that big time. I'm going to start off like this. Right now in boxing, I'm going to use Adrian Broner as a prime example and compare it to bloodboxing's logic of what a Hall of Fame fighter is. Alright, cool, let's go. We seen last night Adrian Broner basically dominate and stop Antonio DeMarco in 8 rounds. Now, in that fight, I want y'all to notice one thing. No, after that fight, I want y'all to notice one thing. One thing. Nobody in sports media, from the HBO commentators to the post-fight journalists to magazine editors, nobody was basically, how could I say it, anxious to see Broner stay at 135 and so-called clean out the division. And I'm going to tell you guys why. And this is only a repeat of history that we already seen before. That I told Bloodboxing he just doesn't understand. Adrian Broner displayed talent. He displayed a talent and skill set that people want to see tested every fucking time he's in the ring. He doesn't get that opportunity to stay at a division where people feel like, oh, this division has no stars. You know? That's why they're telling him to test, you know, how about 140? How about welterweight? How about 154? I heard you could go up all the way up to 154. Do you think you could go up to 154, Adrian Broner? That's what they're actually asking this kid. That's what they're asking this kid. You know, but to bloodboxing standard, bloodboxing will say, you didn't do nothing. And that contradicts itself. Because if the public is demanding you to move up and fight this guy with a name who's not even in your weight class, who's not even in a weight class that you ever participated in your whole career. You never even participated in this weight class. But you're talking about placing me in the ring with this guy because you want to see my skills tested. We seen that all throughout Mayweather's career. And bloodboxing, you criticize if Mayweather's a Hall of Famer. Alright, I'm going to get into what a Hall of Famer is in my book. I mean, what I think it should be in everybody's book. Because, honestly speaking, I think there's too much Hall of Fame fighters who are not really supposed to be there. I think the Hall of Fame should be real tight about who they enroll in it. Not just because you had a belt or two or a couple belts and you've been retired 6 years, you should be in the Hall of Fame. I do not believe that shit. I believe a Hall of Fame fighter should have number one before it, whether he cleaned out his division or stayed or had the belt for a long period of time, the first thing a Hall of Famer should have to be considered a Hall of Famer, he should have mass influence. Mass influence. Period. I think that's the number one thing that a Hall of Fame fighter should have, is mass influence. You know, on the sport of boxing. He should have a mass influence, a huge impact. I can name I'm going to tell you an example of somebody who I feel just doesn't have a mass influence on the sport. And funny thing is, he's one of my top 5 fighters of all time. And I'm just using this to make a strong example. I'm gonna say Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler. Now, let's talk about Marvin Hagler's career. The dude had the fucking middleweight belt for about, I think, 7 fucking years or something like that. Just defended it every time, knocking good guys out, sometimes going 12 rounds. He had a great career. But as far as his influence and impact on the sport, he does not have one. You know? Nobody frankly needs to even speak about Marvin Hagler today. He does not even translate to boxing today. Only if you're very nostalgic or love to live in the past, you even mention Marvin Hagler. You know, you don't have to mention his ass. That's what I'm talking about. I feel like a Hall of Fame fighter, you can't avoid these motherfuckers. Like, they just gonna keep coming up because their influence is so fucking powerful. You know, it's not just about wins and wars, especially wars, because all a war mean is that you was getting your ass whooped too. You know? And you showed heart. I could tell you a dozen fighters who showed heart. Arturo Gatti showed heart. You know? And for what it is, a lot of people dispute Rocky being in the Hall of Fame. Rocky's not even a real fucking person. But let's get back to what Rocky actually is. Rocky is a monument and a very influential figure in the sport. Brought many people to the sport. Millions of people off that movie franchise alone. Although he's not a real sports figure, he's not a real man, his influence and his impact on the sport is unmatched. That's why he's Hall of Fame, and that's why, I don't really dispute it. Some people had a problem with Mike Tyson being a Hall of Fame. Mike Tyson was very influential, had a huge impact on the sport. Things of that nature. But out of all people, for you to question if he belongs in the Hall of Fame, I don't understand how could you question if Floyd Mayweather belongs in the Hall of Fame. And for you to say that, I have to wonder, do you attend or visit boxing gyms? I can't go to a boxing gym and not see a kid. And not even all the time is a kid. It could be a grown-ass man too, trying to mimic something from Floyd Mayweather. It's like everyone, whether you and most people failed at it because it's very hard to do. Everybody tried to mimic that fucking shoulder roll defense and tried to see if they could implicate it in their game. Everyone tried to throw a leaping left hook at like Floyd Mayweather. I see a lot of people mimic stuff Floyd Mayweather do in the gym. You know what I mean? A lot of people do that shit. Day in, day out, that's what I see all day in the boxing gym. And to say that, and to question whether he's Hall of Fame is just nonsense. Because we're seeing right now, and I'm glad we're seeing it with Adrian Broner, because it seems like you forgot. It seems like you forgot the past. Well, I'm glad somebody's pressing the rewind button so you can see all that you missed and watch it all over again. Because you're going to see it all over again with Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner's never going to clean out a division. I'm going to tell you that shit right now. He's never going to clean out a division. He's going to be criticized for not being tested and not fighting good fighters. The motherfucker just came up to 135 and beat the champion. They're already talking about him fighting a junior welterweight or fighting a welterweight. There is no cleaning out division. Like when you see, it's like when they see skills like that, all they want to see is the guy tested. They don't give a fuck what weight class this motherfucker's in. As long as the guy isn't drastically bigger than you. I mean, where he's so big, it will just be an uneven fight. Trust me, they're demanding that fight. Like, you might not see them go as far as to say, hey, do you want to fight Andre Ward? They might not go that far. You get what I'm saying? But trust me, Anybody a little bit smaller than that, they begging for it, you know. Oh, you're ducking him, huh? You're ducking him, huh? All that corny shit. I'm telling you, if anybody has a claim to be a Hall of Fame fighter, it's Mayweather. More than 90% of the guys that's in the Hall of Fame. Because you have to have a crazy influence to be a Hall of Fame fighter. I see a lot of young guys in boxing right now. Some of them, it's not just Broner. I've seen many dudes mimic Mayweather in the ring. Sometimes they do it, they look so stupid doing it, you don't even realize that they're doing it. You know? That's how bad they look. And so they don't get criticized for being, you know, like trying to mimic Floyd Mayweather like Adrian Broner does, because Adrian Broner does a good fucking job at it. Because that's what Hall of Fame is about. It's about your influence on the sport. Like, there's too many champions, you know. That's why you got to limit this shit. You got to limit who you enshrine in the Hall of Fame. There's too many guys who put up those gutsy wars and had belts and clean out their division, all that shit. There's too many of those guys. When you talk about Hall of Fame, you have to do those things. You know, you don't necessarily have to clean out your division, but you have to have a nice amount of skills. You have to be a good fucking fighter, of course. But most of all, you have to have influence, man. You have to impact the sport. I have to be able to say, oh, I could see that this guy looked up to this fighter. You know? I could see that this fighter, he's the originator of this right here. Whether it's his personality, whether it's a signature punch, whether it's his defense, his stance, his whole fighting style, I have to see how you influence and impact the masses of the people that's involved in the sport of boxing. And if I was to say any fighters who has the strongest claim to be Hall of Fame fighters, I would have to say Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson and Floyd Mayweather. They have the strongest claim to be a Hall of Fame fighter because I see their influence, I see their impact, and it will forever be on the sport. It will forever be in the sport. It will never go away. Those three figures will never be forgotten. It's not about cleaning out the division. That shit is irrelevant and it's not happening. I'm telling you. And you're going to see it right now with this kid Adrian Broner. You're not going to see anybody begging Adrian Broner to fight a whole bunch of 135 pounders. Because frankly, nobody even knows 135 pounders right now. That's how boxing is right now. Nobody, like, if there's no stars in that division, people are automatically putting pressure on the fighter to move up. Just because there's no stars, that doesn't mean that this fighter's body could physically handle going up a division or two. You know? That's unfair for the fighter, but that's the way it is now. And if you happen to fail, it's like you're not good anymore. But look at the circumstances you just put the fighter under. So ask yourself this. Who has it easier? The fighters of the past or the fighters today? A motherfucker could live at his division and clean it out fighting no names. And when I say no names, I don't mean that they're bums. I mean that these guys just don't have a name yet. They will only have a name if they give you a tough fight or beat you. That's it. Right now, at 135, with the exception of Ricky Burns, and Ricky Burns is no fucking body. He's just a name that's closest to having notoriety. He's nobody. A lot of people don't even know how that guy look. With the exception of Ricky Burns, whoever Adrian Broner fights, he can make them or break them. Period. Whoever Adrian Broner fights at 135 right now, he can make them or break them. If by making them, they gave his ass a tough fight or they beat him. By breaking them, he fucked them up. Period. That's how it is. But with your logic now, you will say he's not a Hall of Fame fighter because those guys didn't stem off to do great things. You can't control how a guy's future is in the sport. You can't control this guy's habits and his lifestyle, whether he has good eating habits, whether he's all about going to clubs and getting drunk and not putting enough effort into the sport. You can't control what this guy does with his future and career in boxing. All that matters is that he was a good opponent, an opponent worth fighting at the time you and him was in the ring. That's all that matters. That's all you could control. That's all you can control. When Sugar Ray Leonard fought Roberto Duran, Ray Leonard had no control of what Roberto Duran would do in the aftermath of their fight. He had no control over that. That's all Roberto Duran. And Roberto Duran turned out to be a Hall of Famer and have a long, strong career. You understand? So to say he fought no Hall of Famers, that's bullshit. And majority of the time, when you're talking about fighting Hall of Famers, the guys you're talking about are going to be old. And I'm going to give you an example. Right now, Blood, if Adrian Broner was to fight Juan Manuel Marquez, you would say Adrian Broner beat a Hall of Famer. Know what I mean? That's what you would put in his resume. That's exactly what you would put in his resume. He beat a Hall of Famer. Know what I mean? What happened to him fighting a guy that's old? Because Marquez is fucking old. Like, people forget that the dude is not no spring chicken. But some people will say he beat a Hall of Famer. You know? But anybody that's young that he fights and he beats the shit out of them, is like, due to that beating, these guys could never become Hall of Famers. You know, and that contradicts itself. It doesn't make sense. You don't want him to fight old guys, but if he beats Marquez, he fought a Hall of Famer. That goes in his resume. But if he beats a good young fighter and beats him up bad, that guy will never be Hall of Famer because of the ass whooping he just caught. You know, it doesn't make sense. So I have to question what the hell is actually a Hall of Fame fighter to you. You know, what is a Hall of Fame fighter? Because if you have no influence, you don't matter. Period. There's tons of good fighters out there. There's tons of good fighters out there who had strong resumes to your standard. They stayed in that division. They cleaned out their division, and you know, all of that shit. You know, so I just made this video to just show you the light on what's going on in boxing right now, so you could see it play out live and direct through Adrian Broner, because Mayweather's on his way out. You know, Mayweather is on his way out. You're going to see Adrian Broner probably make 1-2 defenses, if he even does, of this WBC belt. And then Adrian Broner is going to be fetched off to fighting stars. They're already saying Brandon Rios. They're already saying Lucas Matisse. They want to see him with names in the ring. They don't care about his weight division. They just don't care. They want to see him test. They want to see him tested. They have some, believe it or not, they got some ignorant people right now that will say Adrian Broner never fought nobody. And all he did was beat the guys that was in his division. You know? You would honestly say he fought nobody at 130. But when you say that, it's like, and I'm not talking about you specifically, but I'm talking about people. But when you guys say that, who was somebody at 130? If he fought nobody at 130, then who is that somebody that you're talking about? Fucking Hank Lundy? Because you seen this guy on, because you seen a guy on ESPN a couple times and you know his name. Oh, that's somebody. Who's the next person? Mercita Gesta, the Filipino guy. Get the fuck out of here, man. That's what y'all guys do all the time. Y'all see a dude get a little TV exposure, and y'all want to act like he's somebody that you got to be mandatory to fight. Those guys are not even in the talks of getting titles. They're not even in the talks. Know what I mean? And look at that. Y'all was talking all that shit about Hank Lundy, and Hank Lundy went in the ring and fucking lost. Like, it's just crazy. It's crazy. People always find a way to just bash a fighter, and they're not even looking at the politics of the sport. You know? They're not even looking into the politics of the sport and the reason these fights are being made. I mean, I'm saying that shit today, November 18th, 2012. You're not ever going to see Adrian Broner clean out a division. I mean, Adrian Broner, right under, with the exception of maybe Canelo, because Canelo's huge in Mexico, right under Mayweather and Pacquiao, Adrian Broner's the next star in boxing. Golden Boy knows that. They know that they could, they know that his image and all that is entertainment, and they could sell this kid. He ain't cleaning out no division against a bunch of no names from the rankings. I could guarantee you that. I could guarantee you that. So you're gonna tell me he would never be a Hall of Famer because of that? Every fight he did was a make or break fight, because all they're gonna do is place him in fights for him to be tested. That's what they're gonna do, just like they did with Mayweather. Mayweather, that's why you notice Mayweather never stayed in no division too long. Every time Mayweather was somewhere, they was comparing him. Oh, could you beat this guy? Could you beat that guy? For the idiots that say, why didn't Mayweather fight Mosley in 2000? Do you know how much Mayweather weighed in 2000? Are you fucking idiots? Do you know how much Mayweather weighed? It's just crazy. Mayweather was 130 pounds in the year 2000. 130 pounds. Shane Mosley went all the way up to welterweight in 2000. And had the body to do so. But you guys, it's like you guys forget that. But due to Mayweather's talent and influence on the sport and impact, you overlook that. So you say, hey, he should have fought Mosley. That's a Hall of Fame fighter for you. He's compared on another standard from other fighters. And you don't, it's like you subconsciously, now I'm talking to you, Blood. You subconsciously know Mayweather is the best. You subconsciously know that because how you compare him. Because the shit you say, you would not say it if he wasn't the best. Know what I mean? You wouldn't say the shit. He wouldn't even be in the argument. It's like you subconsciously want him to win. You subconsciously want him to do these things. But you're bitter because it's not being done in the way that you and I would like to see it. There's certain things about boxing that I fucking hate right now, you know? I hate the fact that a guy like Canelo never fought a decent guy in his own division, but yet he's calling out names just to get a big fucking check. I hate that shit. But I'm not blind to the fact that Canelo could fucking fight his ass off. I'm not blind to that shit. But that's just the politics in the sport. I mean, but I wanted to make this video. I didn't want to make it too long, man. I just wanted to touch on what a Hall of Fame fighter is and what's going on in boxing right now. We're going to see it play out live and direct with Adrian Broner, because it seemed like some people forgot the past. So you're going to see it. You're going to see history repeat itself through Adrian Broner. All right, and then I want you guys to tell me if we're all lucky to be alive in the next 15 years, whether Adrian Broner is a Hall of Famer or not. All right, I'm out of here.